Hello and welcome to Else on Rebase, where we're going to be talking about product, design, technology, meeting friends, learning from them. Today we have Ilko coming to us all the way from Vietnam, talking about banking, design, the difference between the East and the West. Yeah, let's get going. Hey Ilko, really nice to
Hello, and
meet
good
you
to be here. Good to see you again in London.
Slightly jet lagged.
Slightly jet lagged. Trying to make the most of London and taking all the stories from the East with me to share.
So we met when you were originally in HSBC, and since then you moved to Techcombank, which is in Vietnam. So that is very, very interesting. There's a lot of things we should talk about. We've been working together in the last year, so we'll be talking about that a little bit. And just in general, yeah, I think there's some super interesting things we can learn about the differences, about your journey and experience. So how did you end up in the bank in Vietnam from
Indeed.
all of the places?
Well, that's a great story. I didn't expect to be in Vietnam. I never had the ambition to move there. I was headhunted. One day I got offered this opportunity to explore this opportunity. And my first response was not really. I mean, I'm happy in London. I'm happy in my home in Brixton. I'm not going to go to Vietnam. And then I started talking first to the chief digital officer, who is now my boss, then to the CEO, then to the HR people. And I realized what incredible opportunity that is. I didn't think that I would get a gig in the West like this, that really entails such an incredible culture change, contribution to a real culture change in the organization, but also within the country as well. There are not many opportunities in which you can not just have a job, but be part of a movement. And that's what Techcombank is. You know, people who work in Techcombank, they're there during the day, but they also run marathons in Techcombank t-shirts. They evangelize the bank to their relatives. They, when they're on social media, they wear the Techcombank badge. So people take real pride in what Techcombank stands for, the transformation of lives. You know, change banking, change lives is their brand motto, is our brand motto.
That's really cool. So this kind of difference of how people take their jobs and connect it to their personal life. But I actually realized that I should have asked you also, what do you do? So what was that job and what do you actually do?
Yeah, so I'm head of experience design, or as it's called there, head of design center of excellence. And it's a role that looks after all the designers across the retail and the corporate space, as well as all the copywriters, all the researchers, and I'm also building a service design capability as well. So it's it's a big role, and Techcombank has elevated design really high up in the organization. So I report into the chief digital officer, and my peers are the head of retail and corporate banking and the head of digital marketing.
So if I understand correctly, you're like third from the CEO, right? So you're very close to
the CEO and the chairman, indeed. Yes.
Okay. And is that a way that represents how seriously the bank takes design? Do you want to talk about that a little?
Absolutely. I mean, elevating the role of design is something that I have been doing over the years in different organizations, you know, with varied success. I certainly did that at HSBC when I started in 2015, where I was head of experience design for 7 years in different roles. There is a kind of a little resemblance between those two roles, because also at HSBC, we were part of a movement. You know, we started in a place we called the broom closet. And that was
because of the size?
Because of the size of it. It was a basement office on the South Bank. It was the kind of the beginning of digital, the kitchen of digital at HSBC.
What year is that?
2015. I think there were about 300 people in digital at the time. And even though we didn't have machines, you know, pretty much every door was closed, we didn't have the equipment, there was such a spirit of excitement that we were in the beginning of something big and we were driving change. And so, those people that I started with, I'm still friends with, and we still share the memories of that movement that we were a part of. So equally, I'm part of I think of a much bigger movement. And this really, really energizes me. And it's very, very exciting to operate in this way. I don't think that if I went to an organization that was very, very settled and it would be like, oh, this is the design team, we do yoga on Wednesdays, that would give me that kind of satisfaction as the kind of the opportunity to drive real change.
And are you in a broom closet in Techcombank or
Not at all. I'm in one of the most beautiful offices I've ever worked at. So Techcombank has got a head office in Hanoi and in Ho Chi Minh City. And the way they're designed, the way everything feels, smells, looks is really exceptional. So the bank is the fourth biggest bank in the country. It's privately owned. It's not a state bank. It's the most progressive bank in the country for sure. It is kind of seen as a fintech, whilst it's got the infrastructure of a regular bank with a contact center and branch network and all the physical and digital channels. But it certainly is a bar that others measure themselves against when it comes to being innovative, when it comes to being progressive.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Techcombank is the only private bank in Vietnam, or the largest?
No, it's not, but it's the largest.
The largest.
Yes,
it's
indeed.
the biggest IPO Vietnam ever had, I think.
Yes, indeed.
It's partially owned by HSBC.
It used to be. No,
used to be, not anymore.
That was just an episode, and it's got about more than 13 million customers. It's even last year or during the year that I've been at Techcombank, we have won plenty of awards, best bank in Asia in the retail and the corporate space. So it certainly is one of the most significant banking enterprises in the geography.
I think anyone from that geography knows the brand name, and it's considered a very innovative bank.
Absolutely, yes.
So can you talk a little bit about what you were brought on to do, and how's that different to what you've been doing in HSBC, maybe in terms of kind of, a bank that is such a kind of upstarting, innovative in a completely different type of market versus HSBC, which is kind of a very old standing bank in maybe a little bit different.
So I'm coming at a time when the bank is at the level of maturity that is ready to go to another level when it comes to design. The design team is the biggest design team in the region in financial services. Okay. At least that's what we believe. It's more than 40 people across corporate and retail. And really the desire is designed to be a real problem solver, to move away from pixels and just digitizing the execution, but really go to spaces in which we help frame the problem and the opportunity, frame the solution, discuss in a collaborative manner how to tackle that solution, unite around things like the customer journey, integrate design thinking in the organization properly. So this is a very, very big ambition, and I am very, very pleased that the bank has trusted me to lead those initiatives. One of the first things I did when I joined was I started a program called Designing for Trust. And that program really had to had the ambition to demonstrate that designers are operating beyond pixels. That we're problem solvers. That we've got the methods, we've got the frameworks, the processes to solve problems for the customer and for the bank. So we started firstly with very high up with the CEO and with some of the senior leadership, and that was a big success. The second edition of Designing for Trust was done with the HR team. And we brought our design thinking methods and journey mapping methods to demonstrate how the employee experience is the other side of the coin of the customer experience. And so we mapped key employee journeys from employee onboarding to employee cross-boarding, moving from one division to another, the people managers journey. And that was a very, very engaging experience. The Vietnamese are very, very animated, very open people. They like a microphone. Everybody pitched in.
Karaoke's bars.
Yeah, so
Big in
that's after
Vietnam.
work.
Yeah.
This is after work. So that was the second one. Then we did a third one was with all the branch directors. They came from the branches, and again, they did customer journey mapping with us, and we talked about service design. We talked about O2O design. You know, what happens when we send customers from a digital journey to the branch network? What are the handoffs? How do we design that experience? And again, that resonated really, really well. And then there was the fourth one. So this is continuously progressing and escalating positively, in which I gave design thinking for decision making workshops to the key talent in the bank at a university. So I'm on a mission to demonstrate the problem solving capabilities of design. And as I do this, it's a big team. I'm consolidating the team as much as I can, bringing people from the retail space to the corporate space together, looking at those synergies, mapping out the bigger picture, creating things like experience principles, career progression framework, equipping the team with the right tools to function.
I think you talked about with me about this idea of you really want to leave something behind that
Absolutely. Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. I mean, I don't think I've ever operated with such sense of legacy as I do now. Usually the heads of design so far have been expats who have been, the bank is doing a fantastic job to bring expats with great expertise to bring that knowledge to the country, to educate others. And I am one of them. My ambition is to be the last in the chain.
Mhm.
I would like to be the last one because I would like the next head of design to be a local guy or a girl, even better. And that's why I'm working really, really hard to elevate people, to make them managers, to expose them to senior leaders, and to make sure that these guys, one day can lead themselves. And that will set a great example for others because they can see, oh, this could be me one day. That's what I'm trying to do.
That is very interesting. And can you talk about that relationship a little bit about, kind of expats coming in, taking senior roles? And like, I know, for example, you changed your name, right?
Yes, I did. Thank you for asking. So one of the first things I did was to change my name, or rather to add another name to my original name. When I started my job, I noticed that many of the local people had Western names. So they would be called Ling in brackets Zoe, or Huang in brackets Hannah, or Wendy, or Amanda. And they do that to make things easier for us expats, to, easier to pronounce, more relatable. And I thought, why can't we do the reverse, expats? We are guests in these beautiful places. Why can't we give something back? So I wanted to change the narrative. So I looked on the internet and I found the name Tan, Tan, which means new. And I thought that's symbolic of my journey. I mean, this is a new beginning. I then arranged for this to appear in brackets. So in my Outlook, anywhere, whenever my name was appearing in emails, that appeared as Ilko in brackets Tan. I was slightly concerned in the beginning that it could come across as insincere or as a gimmick, but it was the complete opposite. The locals loved it. I mean, whether it's in the office or outside, they would shout, Tanai, which means, hey, Tan.
Yeah.
And it really, for me, it means that I come in peace. I'm one of you, and let's work together. So that was something I'm very, very pleased I did.
I'm actually married to Vietnamese.
Oh,
So
really?
my
Yes.
wife is Vietnamese. So I find Vietnamese people being very open, very warm. How were you received when you arrived? Like what?
It was overwhelming. It was I mean, the guys hadn't had a head of design for about a year, so they were really waiting for me to arrive. And the kind of the warmth, the appreciation was absolutely incredible. And again, going back to being a Techcombank and being in Vietnam, being a techcomer doesn't stop after work. So the guys are very social. They hang out together. They do workshops on the weekend. They do activities on the weekend. And I've been part of that as well. So it's a very inclusive, very warm, very open environment, for sure.
Can you talk a little bit about the customers that the bank has? Like, is there any interesting kind of learnings there in terms of the difference between the West and the East?
So obviously, I have been working in digital design and customer experience for many, many years. I came to Vietnam equipped with principles and best practices. But you always need to have a certain level of flex when it comes to applying those principles and practices. Of course, we continue to do a great deal of customer research. We are the first bank to have a customer lab on the premises. So there's a large amount of customers coming in and out being interviewed. We are engaging more and more into proper end-to-end pieces of research, not just looking at usability testing, but looking at propositional research, exploratory research. And so there's a great deal of insight that comes through that. But again, the customer is not one size fits all. The understanding the customer and particularly understanding the local customer as an expat, you need to do quite a lot of research. You need to do benchmarking. You need to understand the cultural nuances that make those people who they are.
So we worked together, and the particular person we tackled was this kind of merchant type of customer, which I think is very unique for contrasting again with the West. Do you want to introduce that a little bit? Who merchants are? And
yes, of course. So you guys, Elswen, and I worked on a service design project for a very interesting segment that is often referred to as the household merchant, or some call it the small merchant. Merchants are small, medium enterprises. They are a driving force in the Vietnamese economy as a kind of a counterpart to the state-owned companies. And some of them are using business banking. But the household merchants, these people, they are registered as retail customers, and they would have a bank account with Techcombank and maybe a few other bank accounts with other banks, and they would be managing their cash flow and running their business in a quite an intricate way, trying to kind of to be as profitable as they can be. They're an interesting segment for a lot of the banks because obviously all the money they can bring in, all the products they could be,
it's like 30% of the economy,
even more. Yes. And so I wanted to introduce service design properly in the company. Service design is still a novelty in the geography. And we chose to do this project to understand, really kind of get a deep understanding of the behaviors and of the kind of the needs of those customers, and what type of solution could we offer them to really bring them over to the digital space, but also to Techcombank. I was really, really impressed with the work that you did, because you did it remotely in the course of 3 months in weekly sessions, and it was a proper end-to-end approach to the work that I don't think has been done in such a way previously at the bank. So you guys started by interviewing all the different stakeholders, people in the segments and propositional space, people running custom onboarding for merchants, others, working on lending products. So after interviewing those, we created hypotheses, and based on those hypotheses, we did our researchers executed a massive piece of ethnographic research. Particularly my researcher, Hang, did a fantastic job on this. She went to more than 20 small merchants, shop owners, coffee place owners, beauty parlor owners, and interviewed their employees if they had any, or their cashiers if they had any, took photos of their notebooks. Based on this, we then created this big assist state, not just of one journey, but of the entire ecosystem of all the interconnected journeys. He also helped us to do benchmarking globally and within Vietnam. We then created future state recommendations and even design briefs. So from hypothesis generation to a design brief, completely end-to-end process. So that was an impressive piece of work. And so we're looking at integrating some of those recommendations, going back to the merchant proposition, looking at existing journeys and optimizing them. So that's been a very valuable piece of work.
So you threw something, you said notebook.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? So what's kind of describe this situation of, in the world of the merchant, the notebook, the kind of particular quirks of that setup of this person who is kind of a small, very micro business owner, maybe a little bit beyond the kind of their, the environment.
Nothing beats the notebook, right? So no matter how digital savvy and digital loving these people are, a lot of them still have a notebook with a little table, with every kind of transaction, what comes in, what goes out, or, when they are buying in, certain goods, that goes into the notebook. And so we got lots and lots of photographs of those notebooks. Another thing we certainly should talk about is the QR revolution. And so when you go to a coffee place in Vietnam, that was certainly a surprise for me. So in the West here, I usually tap to pay. In Vietnam, I scan to pay. You scan, they would have a QR code printed out on their shop, and then you would scan it. And then there's two types of QR codes. One is the static one, and the other one is the dynamic. The dynamic one pre-populates the amount. The static one requires you to type in the amount. So I would go and order a coffee, write the amount, pay, and then when I have my coffee and want to leave, the owner would be like, no, not yet. Now you can go. So the transaction needs to come in. So there's that very interesting level of trust before you actually leave the business. Going back to merchant, I mean, the QR code payments are a mechanism that really drives their businesses. But another thing that happens a lot is when you actually paid, the employee would take a photograph of your phone with the success screen, because they need to demonstrate, if they're an employee, they need to demonstrate to the owner that this transaction has happened. So there's a lot of space for optimization of the experience. There's a lot of habits and behaviors and mental models that need to be changed and can be changed. And that's why the merchant piece was such an incredible experience. But again, I am very, very much impressed by the way you guys did the work remotely and managed to get a thorough understanding of the context and of this particular customer in such a short period of time.
Thank you. That's really nice of you. The QR code is mandated across the entire country, right? So for those that don't know, is the Viet QR. And that's a system in place that is across the country. I know here in kind of UK, maybe a little bit less so, but in Europe, certainly they're looking in some countries of introducing something similar. Can you talk about what's what does that allow and unlock in terms of banking innovation, or
Mhm.
kind of thinking about customer problems and solving them, some of the learnings that
Yeah.
that came out of that, which are unique for this area.
So for people who were in Vietnam during COVID, they tell me that the QR codes were just beginning to happen, and then with the big push by the government and the backing of the government, that really took over after COVID. I believe that now it drives 60%
Wow.
of the digital economy in Vietnam. It really is very, very interesting. I post about these things on LinkedIn these days just to kind of try to explain the differences between East and West. And as I said, when I'm here in London, I tap to pay. When I'm in Vietnam, I scan to pay. Pretty much every little merchant, from a lady selling rubber shoes on the street with a cone hat, to a coffee place, to a supermarket, they would have the QR code printed out somewhere. And that really allows them to integrate digital payments as an alternative to cash. I mean, cash is still pretty much present. So it's usually cash and QR code. They're the two payment methods.
Can you get away with just QR code? Like if I go to, a big city, like Ho Chi
You can.
Minh, or
Yes,
can I
you
just
can. Yeah,
live my life with a QR
absolutely.
code? Okay.
Yes, you can. I haven't experienced a place that doesn't have a QR code, which is very, very interesting. It's obviously with the QR payment, you do not have the costs for credit or debit cards that usually come for the merchants. So they're very, very popular. And again, when you're a merchant, when you register as a merchant with the bank, then you get a QR code for your different shops. And so that obviously enables a convenient digital payment for your customers. So the QR codes are there to stay. I was buying flowers the other day here in Brixton, and I was asked to pay cash. And I was just thinking, oh, it would be so handy if there was one of those, this mosaic of black and white bars printed out, so that I don't have to wait for cash. And whether it's going to come here or not, I'm not sure. I know that in the West, there are some privacy concerns as well when it comes to it.
It's one of the things that can happen very easily in a country like Vietnam, where they can mandate government infrastructure.
Mhm.
While in here, I think, it is more open for the market and for, the regulator nudges.
Yeah.
And we have PSD2 and open banking and all that stuff. But that level of like mandating can happen just in particular types of markets.
Yes. I mean, I believe that it's happening within the Monzo ecosystem. So the QR codes are happening just within Monzo, but obviously that is limited if it's just within one bank.
Yeah. I think, it is something that is emergent more on the kind of east side. Are there any other partners like that you've seen? Like, what's the relationship with, for example, social media that we use here, or kind of the different apps that are there? What are the top 3-4 apps that you notice that people are use, or can you share something that is unique for that market that we wouldn't be familiar with?
Oh, I mean, so there's like the counterpart of Amazon. So there are two apps which are very popular. One's called Lazada, and the other one is called Shopee. And everybody.
Is it similar, like 24 hours? Or?
It is 24 hours. You can choose not to connect. A lot of people don't connect a card with either. And so that's a very interesting, the workflow is quite interesting, including myself. So I would order a product and it would be delivered at work. So I would get a phone call, which is in Vietnamese. So I usually have to ask someone to translate what that says. It usually says, "Come downstairs now." And then I would see the delivery man. They would have a QR code. I would scan, pay with a QR code, and then collect my product. And so
Uh-huh.
it's I mean, slightly different than Amazon. Again, these cultural differences are very energizing. I count myself lucky to be able to experience those. I mean, as frustrating as they can be at times as well. It's it's very intriguing to see that this world operates with its own norms, with its own rules, and it's a massive, it's a sizable world that exists alongside the one that I have grown in.
Is the QR and kind of the the desire for that, does that help to onboard a customer into digital banking? Is that one of the ways you kind of manage to get them into digital banking, and I guess maybe moving away from something like a notebook to maybe a more sophisticated solution? Or kind of is has that been an enabler to get people take up banking products and digital banking products?
It is an enabler, I believe, to an extent, but generally the everybody is on their phone, and everybody's got the desire to do banking through their phone. So pretty much all the local apps, they've got the scan QR as one of the key kind of big buttons in their navigation. This is always big and prominent because you just need it for everything. You just go and buy a coffee after scan QR. You've got your own QR code, so you can request the payment through it. You know, you can share a bill through it. So it's a key tool in digital banking, and it makes lives much easier and less cash dependent.
So are they, again, this you know, kind of different type of market and different type of dynamics? So the QR code, are there potentially banking products that are very unique and you haven't seen here in the West that been developed? Anything you can share on that side of things?
Well, I mean, as I said, as a merchant, you get your assigned QR code for your shop. You know, if you've got several shops, you've got, you know, a QR code for each one. So you use it to collect payments. When your merchant dashboard, you can see the revenues that come to those QR code payments. You can see the revenues that come through another channel. So if you've integrated with something like Shopee, et cetera, et cetera. So the kind of the QR payment technology is underlying a lot of the products. I mean, there aren't any which are just, you know, QR code specific or driven products, but it's a key enabler of many of the digital products.
So QR code is pretty unique in compared to what we have here. Is there any other interesting innovations that you can share?
Yeah, well, something I should certainly mention is the fact that Techcombank was the first one in the region to have payments and transfers designed in a conversational manner, in a very minimal, non-traditional form way. I can actually share some screenshots with you so you can see what I'm talking about. And that was a very, very brave move in the region where less is more doesn't really apply. And it's something that customers had to be educated to use, but now they love it. It reduces the cognitive load. There's only one question on a screen. It doesn't have kind of the dense format of a traditional form. And so this is one of the things that, you know, that the bank positions itself with. There's very, very progressive, very innovative design.
QR is one of the things that this market differentiates from the West. Are there other products, financial products you've seen that the bank does, or maybe there's somebody else that are interesting to share?
So being in the swirl of this digital revolution and kind of capitalizing on that energy, there's a lot going on in the digital space, and particularly Techcombank is an innovator. And Techcombank has launched products that others are imitating already. One of them is AEM, auto earning mode. It's basically a current account that generates profit, above a certain threshold, money's being swept, and customers are generating daily profit. So it's a very, very popular product. It's something that other banks are already looking to borrow as an idea. Another thing to mention is that banks are capitalizing on some of the constraints, or that that the constraints become opportunities for innovation. There isn't such a thing as a nationwide credit rating like we have here in the UK in particular, and in the US. And so with credit, there are many, many opportunities to innovate in that space and create different types of systems that are specific to the bank, that would encourage customers to build some sort of a score or a credit, and then to get access to credit products.
Credit, is that for example, a product in the market?
Yeah.
So is that something that these sort of clients are interested in? Like, how does the whole loan and credit area work?
So there are a number of credit cards. There is Techcombank. There's a product called My Cash or Shop Cash for the merchants. That is an overdraft product. It's actually a loan, but it's not. It's an overdraft, but it's not connected to a current account. A slightly different construct.
To support them with the cash flow running like a tiny business.
Yeah, exactly. For kind of short-term needs. Obviously in the corporate space, there are different and there are kind of more robust credit products. But there's a lot of work happening in the retail space to come up with credit products that would incentivize customers to to build their credit, and also to build a relationship with the bank. The more we know you, the more we trust you, and the more money we can give you, basically.
There's probably a lot of differences between East and West. How does that apply to design? Like, what's been different from that respect, if you think about it as a designer?
That's a great question. Again, I went to Vietnam equipped with my principles and best practices, which I have been collecting and building as a system all over the years. But as soon I realized that I need to have a certain flexibility within that. I can't just go and apply them black and white. An example is Techcombank. There's those beautiful, very unique app backgrounds that have got a lot of local color. When you look at them, you can always smell them. You can feel them. It's their kind of culturally infused, traditionally infused kind of landscapes of, someone in a cone hat in a lake, or someone picking up cherry blossom from a tree. Very specific, very Vietnamese, very strongly contextual Vietnamese images. And at first I wasn't sure how, what to make of that, because beautiful as they are, I didn't see how they fit with, a banking app where you've got your, account balance, and you need to discover the products that you need to discover. But I very, very soon realized that this is such a trademark of the bank, and these images are so loved. People collect them. People want to identify with them. So that was one learning point for sure, that I cannot apply the kind of the principles and the best practices I have, make it white, for example, in a rigid manner. But I need to understand.
Minimalism.
I need to understand. Yes,
it's really the role of design. I love that, because payments is, as an experience, something that is 100% driven by the process.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the payment system needs, and you as a human, you will do what the system needs. So being able to redesign that and rethink that is like, what is the easiest way to do payments? I know probably a lot of people out there have been struggling and trying to get to do, and actually you managed to do that in the bank. That's super interesting.
Yes, and that presents a lot of other opportunities. We are continuously looking to refresh the interfaces, to kind of to evolve them. How do we speak to customers? when we start properly personalizing the experience, what are the different voices? Do we speak to a merchant in a slightly different voice than the way we speak to someone who is a salaried premier customer? How do we integrate that human aspect? What is the tone of voice that changes from one customer to another? So that opens up a lot of opportunities for experimentation and for pushing the boundaries and for becoming much more human in a digital context.
We're super excited about that at Elsewhere because we believe that generative AI and large language model technologies are unlocking this age of mass customization. And you will be able to speak in a very personable way, in a very human way with a lot of different type of customers. And that's something that we always wanted to do in digital and never could technology-wise. And now it's getting unlocked. And I think that's a huge opportunity to differentiate and to actually create something that is, very desirable for the customer, that personal relationship with the bank. So
there's a lot. I mean, I won't be able to disclose, what exactly that is, but there's a lot of work happening in that space. The good thing about Techcombank, again, is that there are all those initiatives, all those things cooking all the time. People start their own projects. People run activities on Saturday, on the weekend, co-creations, innovation initiatives, hackathons. And those things, they're not just trophies that remain on a shelf, but they see the light of day. In several months' time, this is part of the roadmap. And that's the beauty of working at such a place where you've got this immediacy of experimentation and then, seeing an actual product.
Is innovation easier out there?
I would like to say yes. I think particularly when you have endorsement of senior leadership, which we do, things happen very, very quickly. People are excited to engage in all sorts of extracurricular activities. People like to see change. Change is happening in front of your eyes within the bank, outside of the bank, and that's an energy which is contagious. There's also a lot of very, very exciting work that I have been doing with the branch network as well, in which we'll be looking at the customer journey from digital to physical channels, O2O journeys, and how we can leverage design thinking properly to create a synchronized and truly optimized customer experience. And so, yes.
Do you think you will move away from branches, or branches are to stay in Techcombank?
I don't think we'll move away from branches anytime soon, but we'll very soon see a very different branch of the future, which one of the initiatives I've been leading recently involved a lot of visits to branches. And it's interesting, when I was doing that at HSBC, people in the branch network were somewhat scared of all the digital wave that was happening. It's completely the opposite in Vietnam. People want more digital utilities integrated into the branch networks. They want more iPads. They want more digital identity verification. They want a seamless process across the apps and the branch. So there's a real desire to integrate that by senior leadership, by people who work in branches, and by customers themselves. So I don't think the branches will disappear, but they will be transformed with rapid steps, as will be everything else around that.
I really admire you for just picking up your stuff, living your cozy Brixton apartment with your fox, and moving away to Vietnam. How was that experience like?
That was a very difficult experience. As you know, I'm a big fan of London and everything it gives me, from the West End to the festivals, to my friends who are here, to my fox who used to be in my home. But I really felt in my heart that this gig was something that I had to do and that I could do it very well. Um, and you know what they say, if you don't go, you don't grow. I certainly feel that in the last year, I have grown more than I have in the last decade.
That's really cool. Well, thank you for sharing your story with us. And thank you for joining Elsewhere Rebase, where we meet our friends and we talk about digital design, technology, and in this case, banking in Vietnam. Thank you.
Thank you. It was an honor.